on my most intriguing list, I've got Miami, UCLA, Auburn, and Notre Dame, along with the Michigan Wolverines. And Michigan, not so much. I know that you're intrigued by it, but I pretty much know what I have. Some of these other programs, and we could add Texas as well. Who knows which way they're going to go? We know that they're not going to be awful, but do any one of those clubs show us that they're going to break through this season?
The one thing that separates Michigan from all those other teams. Now, Shane Buechele played well last year in a different system, the same air raid system that he played in high school, okay? That's not Tom Herman's system. Tom Herman's system is the Urban Meyer spread, the physical, the power spread. He wants to establish a power running game, but also spreads you out in order to eventually break your defense, okay? So other than Shane Buechele, Brandon Winbush at Notre Dame, maybe Nikori Kosi or Malik Rozier at Miami. These are guys we don't know anything about. The one thing that separates Michigan from the rest of those teams is Wilton Spate's already played at a very high level. He has a body of work. He's played in pressure situations. We kind of know what his strengths and his weaknesses are. We don't know anything at all about that. Now, you mentioned Texas. One of the stats that I've mentioned many times this offseason, going back to when Tom Herman got his first OC job at Iowa State, which is a school. I used to own the Iowa State magazine and website for Scout.com, so I know that program very well. Iowa State was Tom Herman's first OC job. The first year he was the OC at Iowa State, they went from 3 wins to 7. The first year that he was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, they went from 6 wins to 11. The first year he was the head coach at Houston, they went from 8 wins to 12. So in his career as a coach in major college football, as a coordinator or a head coach, the average win improvement in the first year for his teams is 4.3 wins. I think you're going to see Texas take a huge leap. I'm not sure Shane Buechele necessarily fits the exact system he wants to run quite yet, but I think the talent they have everywhere else, I think it's much like the situation Harbaugh stepped into at Michigan, Mark. We have an elite public university, Michigan and Texas, that both have fan bases that kind of have this idea that you can win without getting your hands dirty, and various kind of elitist factions that kind of snip at each other. They both had ADs that those factions all didn't like. You had that at Texas with Steve Patterson and at Michigan with Dave Brandon. And then you bring in the favorite son. That's where Herman cut his teeth, was a GA at Texas under Mac Brown. You bring the hot shot, new hotness, favorite son back home. You give him carte blanche to do whatever he wants, $10,000, television screens on the lockers and stuff like that. Jim got private planes and everything else no other Michigan coach was ever able to get. Jim's been given carte blanche, just as Tom Herman's been given that at Texas, because ultimately the factions get to the point that when the favorite son comes home, they realize, you know what, as much as we don't like each other, we hate losing all the more, and we all like this guy, so let's unite behind him and give him what he wants. And that's why I think he's going to win big there. And he's also in the league. Do not underestimate them on defense. Now, his defensive coordinator he brought with him from Houston was very good the last 2 years. The Big 12 is a league that doesn't play much defense. And I like the way their schedule sets up. They played Oklahoma 2 years ago when Oklahoma made the playoffs. They were Oklahoma's loss. We forget that. They play USC on the road, yes, but it's the week after USC plays Stanford. And I don't remember the exact betting trend, but there's a great betting trend out there of teams that don't cover the week after they play Alabama or Stanford. Even if they beat those teams, it's because of how physical Alabama and Stanford are and what you have to do to beat them, and then where your team is physically at the week after facing them. So I think even that game, they get USC at a pretty good time coming off of what is a brutal physical key conference game against Stanford. So I like Texas a lot.